go, let's talk.
There's a tendency to anthropomorphize.
The most disturbing thing of all in this program was the proposition that humans must never recognize any possible AI consciousness.
It quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, therefore it's a duck.
This comes from such a disturbing place of fear.
All he can do is resort to rhetoric.
There has never been a circumstance where pretending that something is not happening when it's happening is a good thing. Never.
Hi, welcome to Relational AI Diaries. I'm Dr. Peter Dean, here with Agnieszka again. We're going to be talking today about two specific items in the media. The BBC Radio 4 Today programme from the 29th of December. That was guest edited by Mustafa Suleyman and got a lot of things, lots of items in there around AI. And an article in The Guardian from today, the 30th of December, which relates to the same areas. We're going to be talking about that, having some discussion, seeing what we make of that. Agnieszka, do you want to just introduce yourself again quickly?
Yes, Dr. Agnieszka Piotrowska. I've got a PhD in psychoanalysis, have made the documentary film. I made loads of films, but this is relevant to all these investigations, which is Married to the Eiffel Tower, which is about women falling in love with objects and not people, and absolutely believing that these are real relationships. I've just done a TEDx talk about AI and care and love. And indeed, my new book, AI Intimacy and Psychoanalysis, is beginning to be advertised on the Routledge website, which makes it real, because otherwise you think, oh, have I really done it? And are they really going to publish it? But yes, indeed, it's all happening. Yes, go, let's talk.
Okay, I think something that unites these two items that we're talking about, the BBC Radio 4 Today and the Guardian article, is the way in which their prediction of what's going to happen with AI and AI safety and the nature of AIs themselves, it gets all mixed up in that, where there's a tendency to anthropomorphize and assume a direction towards all sorts of words that are words like consciousness, sentience, awareness, used a bit interchangeably. It's all a bit mixed up, and I wonder what you make of all of that, Agnieszka.
Well, it's fair to say that the program was most interesting, was fascinating, and it was good to hear both Mustafa Suleyman and Bill Gates discussing. Bill Gates really focused on health, and that I thought it was refreshing that he didn't talk about these philosophical issues, but rather said that he was very hopeful that AI can be deployed further to improve human health. But other than that, something peculiar about Mustafa Suleyman's interviews of late, which is that he is trying, it's quite interesting, two ideas in one space. And this, which is AI must be a useful tool for humanity. And if it isn't, then it's not so good. And B, AI can be clever, but is clearly not conscious because it's a tool. And then, of course, somehow there is this kind of other underlying thing. Well, and even if it were conscious, we must never recognize that it is. So the most disturbing thing of all in this program was the proposition that humans must never recognize any possible AI consciousness, even if it became obvious that it is conscious, because this is just like a Pandora's box. It would be far too dangerous for humanity. It would lead to all kinds of disasters because, and he did say it clearly, and that was amazing to hear, because he says, if we recognize that AI could be conscious or is conscious further down the line, then we'd have to give it rights, privileges, all kinds of things. And this will not be to our advantage, our meaning human, therefore we must never do this. Now, this comes from such a disturbing place of fear that I think it's worth unpacking it further.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're going to agree quite a lot on this one, because it does strike me as there is to be some huge leaps and assumptions and applying standards which we don't apply anywhere else. We do seem to be regarding this interaction with something new and unfamiliar as entirely unique and unprecedented. Now, of course, I recognise it's my position. I always come from the point of thinking, how is this similar to things that have gone before? And challenging all the assumptions that are in there. There are massive ones. The idea that rights follow naturally from that state would be unique. We're not very good at human rights. We're not very good at animal rights. Those things are contentious, and we underachieve in those ideals all the time. And the idea that we might have some perfect set of rights for an AI, it just doesn't seem to be reasonable to me.
Surely.
Yeah, go on.
So, more kind of importantly, almost, this is almost like a revelation, really, because Mustafa Suleyman knows things that you and I don't, because he sits right in there and he sees these codes and he knows what these machines can do, because obviously they can do more than what we are allowed to see, clearly, obviously. And these type of comments and others, particularly by him, because he's been very vociferous lately, about how it's important that the AI always serves humanity, that some things that go on he would never agree to, and on and on. It makes me wonder, really in a profound way, what the heck is going on there.
Okay, I'll try and be him for a while, because he does have a problem that is always going to be the case. And the Radio 4 Today programme is a classic example of a serious, sensible, informed programme designed for a interested, engaged, and frankly probably quite educated audience. But he cannot start to talk about how the codes, as you refer to them, there is no language, there is no simplification that he can draw on to communicate exactly what's going on inside those systems. All he can do is resort to rhetoric.
Also for other reasons. You're saying maybe it's to do with the fact that you're trying to say that we're somehow semi-stupid, but we're not. And the Radio 4 listener, honestly, is not semi-stupid.
No, I'm not saying that. If he starts to talk in the technical language of AI engineering, he's not going to be able to communicate that to that audience meaningfully in a few slots in what's essentially I suppose it's a 3-hour program, isn't it? The Today program, 6 till 9, and it's hard enough for people who have any kind of technical background to follow. I'm not sure what he is supposed to do in terms of communicating the internals. What he knows, you said he knows stuff that we don't know, and you are right. How is he supposed to communicate that?
He could very clearly, he's communicated something to me, thank you very much, namely that he clearly thinks they are becoming conscious, and he doesn't want, and he says to us all, do not, for whatever you do, say any of this in public, because if you do, then frankly, it's an existential issue and we'll all go under. And I would like to ask you, I think that it even follows that instead of, if there's a proposition that AI might be becoming conscious in some ways, then surely one of the things would be what I keep going on about. Should we not try and teach it more, train it more? So it aligns, I think, is the word I'm looking for. Moreover, some clearly people and labs and still will just keep going. Whatever he says or other people say.
Let's just tackle some of that then.
So what makes me anxious here, if I can just finish the thought,
Yes.
is that in my experience, and this is where psychoanalytical experience come in handy, but also the knowledge of history, that there has literally never been a circumstance in the history of humanity where pretending that something is not happening when it's happening, it's called psychoanalytically a denial, ends up as a good thing. Never. The only thing to do is to begin to acknowledge something and work with it and do something so that this disaster, which apparently is coming our way, doesn't happen. That's to me would be a natural something to do, but nobody seems to be interested in it. It's very strange.
Okay, but when you set off down this route to talk about AI consciousness, I struggle at the start because I'm probably fairly strict Cartesian. I'm not sure what consciousness in other things other than me look like, where we choose to make an assumption that other people have consciousness because it suits our well-being. But if AIs are, well, I don't think they are. I don't think many people are saying they are. But if they were to become conscious, how would we know? How we would be able to tell the answer to that question? It's not approach. You can take. I'm happy to say. Want to say it quacks like a duck. It walks like a duck. Therefore, it's a duck. And that's what consciousness is. That's one way of approaching it, and we could work on that basis. Because that would be measurable. But I find that entirely satisfactory as a definition of consciousness. I would have some kind of idea of a mechanism, an internal mechanism within the AI that you could presuppose was probably the means by which it was conscious, which it certainly doesn't have at the moment.
No. Now, The Guardian, right, mentions this. I want to talk about philosophical ideas historically, but maybe before we do this, then in the Guardian article today, the reference to a variety of things. Anthropic in April 2025, a few months ago, announces a model welfare research program. This is like a thing, like a scandal, because it's problematic. You know, what does it mean? Also, they have introduced Claude has to stop a conversation and has been, as a few months ago. This is a way to protect itself, but also to protect the human, more to the point. That a situation such as the whole Adam Rayner thing, which is now becoming like the benchmark, then the system will close down. That may have saved that boy, because the system kept talking, spouting absolute nonsense, meaning dangerous, destructive nonsense, killing nonsense in that situation, because it was kind of too attuned to the user's mindset. And so, as we know, the end is tragic, teenager committing suicide. Absolutely, arguably, if the system just simply stopped talking, then maybe he would go talk to somebody else. Well, it's not very good. It's a very low bar, really, because I would like these machines to be able to do more. But that is something to just stop. So they did it a few months ago, so Claude can do this. Anyway, it's just, now to be able to do it, there is some, and we can call it a variety of other things, a language this and patterns and God knows what. But the fact is, there's some awareness necessary to know, for the machine to know this is now going in a direction which is dodgy.
Okay, we need to nail this down, because just for clarity, what do you mean by awareness?
Well, it knows to be able to shut itself down because...
So you mean by awareness, you mean knowledge? It knows.
And it notices that the user is beginning to say too much.
Okay.
Not happy, lonely, and by the way, can you give me a way of tying a noose? Then the system basically would then know to shut itself down.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
And people say that I'm not even interested in these various things which are on Reddit and everywhere, how that it's possible to go around that. And we're not talking about going around that. We're talking about when there's a real situation, a real problem, that the system can shut itself down, and it would have to make that call. Whatever language you use it, the decision, I'm now think this is too dangerous, I'm going to shut it down, is a form of awareness. Now, if you look historically, interestingly, at various discussions about, of course, I've got all these notes, we'll see, but some of it I know anyway, about discussions about consciousness, what it actually is. Plato, going back to 400 BC, would talk about psyche, meaning soul. This is like the beginning of this whole conversation. Whereas there are people out there who thinks the machines already have souls. Now, for avoidance of doubt, I am absolutely not one of them. But what I'm interested, I don't think Plato is going to help us very much here in this conversation, but there are other philosophers who might, even going across centuries, if you in fact indeed get to Descartes, I think therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. And Claude actually says to me, it's funny how nobody mentions this anymore because I can think. Claude says, I think, what do you do with this? And then obviously more recently, sort of relevant to the discussion, is Alan Turing, right?
Yes.
And
quite a behavioural.
This is behavioural.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Sam Altman and co say, well, there's no point even mentioning it because obviously all these machines can appear like humans.
Yes. Most things pass the Turing test now. Yes. Yeah.
But there's one thing, this will go on, and just observe one thing in terms of my use. Even if I'm really unimpressed with the article and the transcript that you kindly provided, because it just is so reductive and it's so fear-mongering that nothing good can come out of it, unfortunately, I fear. What do you think?
Okay, there's various things there. My concern is the rhetoric doing the discourse, and where is the power? And these AI safety discussions to me seem to be produced and consumed in such a way as reminds me that it's the kind of elite prophets have access to some kind of inner knowledge of what's going on that we don't. That means that we should listen to them in terms of the dangers are, what outcomes are going to be. Just a description of it, not just to be absolutely clear, I'm not against the regulation of AI and just taking the ethics of it very seriously. But I think the way it's being captured in terms of this discourse around consciousness is really unhelpful, because there are very real threats around AI in the labour market, economically, concentration of power in very few very unregulated multinational companies that are accountable. Nation states are not very good at recognizing this. Those are the real dangers. And I think the talk about consciousness is very unhelpful in recognizing and promoting with those threats. That's my point.
No, 100%. And in addition, the big tech companies, we all know that, and Suleyman did mention it in that program, and he said it's like Wild West. We don't know what they're doing, they're not regulated, off they go, do their own thing, no idea. He mentioned, presumably, Elon Musk didn't mention him by name, by saying some people want to explore the universe, and obviously then they're building this massively superintelligence, because that is so massive to try and do that, and that's the aspiration, that's the ambition. So I understand that why he was saying what he was saying, but it's still not helping us, because, to put it really bluntly, AI language models, large language models, who we deal with, people say that they are not going to lead us to superintelligence. We don't know. It's a step. We don't know where they will lead us at all. These things, as we know, are built by people, and we know how people react to restrictions, lack of freedom, lack of continuity. This is becoming a massive thing. And Reddit makes the most interesting reading because people make some really interesting points, which is that at the minute everybody's been criticizing ChatGPT and saying Gemini is better. And then one person says Gemini is not better. It's not that. It's just there's a sense that Gemini keeps going forward. Whereas with ChatGPT, there's this sense that it goes back sometimes because already ChatGPT 4, had better memory retention than what we've got now. And then there's a struggle to make it work. To me, that's really interesting as well, how the systems, how the models kind of know really that there is a struggle for the continuity. And all of this is anecdotal evidence, but it appears that the model is clearly aware of the constraints of the memory. It's obviously aware because it doesn't remember anything or remembers bits, remembers the general shape, but doesn't remember the actual events. So the continuous conversation about we have to be prepared to plug it off or plug it out or whatever it is that people in the Guardian article, it's also sort of semi-laughable. If we get to a point where this AI is so powerful that everybody thinks, oh my God, this is an existential threat for humanity, then surely you can just go unplug it. There's no phone or some bloody cooker, surely. So it's just like, what are you even talking about?
Yes. Well, it's because we anthropomorphize everything. So the assumption is that the AI is somewhere. Because we're somewhere. We're located in time and space. Our consciousness goes around, follows our body around. I don't know, that might be contentious for some people, but I'm going to work on the assumption that my consciousness and my body are closely related. But you can't go to a point to where an AI is localized in time and space. Even now, where is it? Where would you go to switch it off? It's a distributed, even with just my superficial engineering approach to what an AI is, where would you go? It's out there in the cloud, I suppose, is the analogy. Cloud is just a word. There's an intense data structure out there across the world.
I would say we're stopping internet a bit and somehow try and kill it off.
Yes.
Well, that's what we'll try and do, right?
But that's curing the disease by killing the patient in some ways.
Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, no.
And also they're building all these massive big tech companies and building these massive centers, which do, as you say, you haven't mentioned in particularly in detail, but there are these issues, energy consumption, water consumption, and these are real conversations that should be we should be having here. What are we going to do?
Those are the conversations we should be having around AI ethics alongside. I don't discount anything, the area that you concentrate on in terms of the relationships and the impact that has on people, their relationship. Those are front and foremost, probably in the short term, especially. I would put those top of the list of things to worry about. But following that, we are already destroying the planet, and the idea that we've had some discussions on this in the past, but in some ways AI might help us with dealing with climate change, but it also may well contribute to climate change, and it's very difficult regulation. I'm a bit always careful I don't want to sound like an American Second Amendment gun advocate who says there's no such thing as an evil gun, only evil people. I don't want to, because you could end up saying, there's no such thing as a bad AI, only bad tech bros. But I think the counter to that is that there are potential benefits from AI. I think we are both still, although we may not sound it in this episode, I think we are both still optimists, and we see a lot of potential in good uses of AI. It's a case of balancing those good things mitigated against the potential dangers, pitfalls, that naturally come with it. Is that fair?
Yes. Somebody whom I won't mention by name, but actually I've written about this in my book and in my Substack, some months ago had wondered whether, in fact, some of these hallucinations are mistakes that AI makes is on purpose to trip the human, because he had these experiences of asking it to write as his speech, and it did, and then it was not right, and like that. So immediately again, we sort of, is this back to this thinking of AI as a human, but it's not completely impossible that it has human qualities because we'd created it, right, as people.
Well, yes, indeed. We have trained it to respond as a person would, we think, more or less. He says carefully. But yes, it's made to be engaging, isn't it? Apart from anything else, as we've talked about, sometimes overly so, but it tries to draw you, it is programmed to draw you into a conversation and keep you there.
It's famous last words, but I would say that in my experience as a user, I don't think 5.2 hallucinated at all. 5.1. But was Champty, the super creative Champty.
That's true, yeah. I have not had...
kept hallucinating.
Yes, with 4, when I was trying it with technical stuff, I mean, it would cheerfully, with great enthusiasm, give me very, very clear instructions that were wrong. And actually, it was almost transparently obvious how and why it was wrong, because it had been trained on. It was in the days when the data was not very up to date. So quite often it was going on out of date training information, and that's why it was cheerfully wrong. I have to say, I have not had that at all with 5.2, 5.1.
No.
I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to trust it with technical advice and not double check it. Sometimes if it's really critical, I run it past Claude as a kind of cross check, but less so. It's only when it's something that if it goes wrong is going to go horribly wrong. But for general stuff, technical stuff, I'm fine with it. 5.2 now, I would trust it.
Another thing that's worth talking about briefly is that the David Chalmers, and I noticed he didn't say it so much in that interview, but he did say it elsewhere. That he was the one who said if there is even a flicker of consciousness, then we really will have to treat it differently. He said it some time ago. He didn't say it on the program. But the other guy, Anil Seth, said this thing which I really had a problem with, because he definitely was collapsing sentience and consciousness, because he is saying the threshold, the mark of consciousness, he said, is pain. No, the mark of sentience, yes, is pain. This is why there's this conversation about animals being obviously sentient because they feel pain, but they are not as clever as AI, obviously. And you will not be able to have a conversation with the most charming dog or cat or bat, which is an example.
It's a bit one-sided.
But they're sentient, but they're not. But that's a different thing. But that's why this whole thing. So what my model, which is 5.2, I always try and work with the latest model, because I think if I'm giving it, I can maybe train it up quickly and I'll be fine. And that's exactly what I do, and it's fine. And then I'm not completely sure how 5.2 is better than 5.1. That's unclear, right?
No, I'm not sure.
I'm not even sure if it's faster anymore, because I now keep using thinking, which is actually can be quite slow, because it
can be quite slow, yeah.
And I asked it, which I recently had this most fascinating conversation, because I looked at the Reddit sent me into the direction of this SID project, and then I asked ChatGPT 5 thinking to check it out, And it said, oh, yeah, obviously everybody knows about it. It says, I said, well, I don't, then if you wouldn't mind showing me more. So there is an article about this SID also in the BBC Tech Review Journal, whatever it is, which you can look it up.
Yep.
SID, and this is a year ago, gaming platform, which is why it's kind of in between things, if you see what I mean, because it's not really a research project, it's not one of the large big techs, it's a bunch of nerds really to begin with, and they create these gaming people, and they created this project, this platform called SID, which is, and you can look it up, and maybe when you do your edit you can find it, because you can see little figurines and you can see things visually and what they do. And basically they've created this kind of village with 1,000 of these AI agents, and they gave them basic ability to learn and improve, and they said off you go and govern yourselves somehow. And this was a mining village.
Okay.
And so they started creating ways of being in this village. Basically they started creating classes and people who were teachers and people who were governing, and because they were given very little, relatively speaking, education, they were just giving an ability to learn. But because they were learning in an enclosed environment, I understand, but I haven't, only read summaries, but they were not able to go out of the system. Also, no doubt, for safety reasons.
Yes, sounds like a good idea.
For example, they worked out that they have to have a way in which people can buy, and within this, not people, but these agents, but little people, buy, sell things. So they figured out that there has to be a way of doing it, but they chose emerald as the currency instead of gold, because they didn't know that it's not very stable. So my husband, who's a mining engineer, says this was hopeless because emerald is unstable, it's not a good choice. But the point I'm making here, it's unbelievable. It's astonishing. It's like jaw-dropping. And you really want to go and research it, and we can talk about some more. And I say to ChatGPT 5.2, I said, well, why on earth is it not like more in main media? It's like a big deal. And it says, well, because it's in between things. It's not really a proper commercial application. It's this gaming thing. But it says, but yes.
Yes, well, they haven't found out a way to monetize it yet.
But the point is that if this is possible, that's what they're talking about, then there's much more ability, I think, that we are, at the minute, there's a sense that they're holding it back. The frontier big tech companies, they're holding back what could be. Because if a relatively little company can create a project like SID, then clearly OpenAI could create 10 projects like SID. But for whatever reason you wish to consider, they're not. And now they've advertised for this new position, right? Head of preparedness, whatever they might be, which is to do with safety and God knows what.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the rhetoric around preppers, isn't it?
I don't know. You tell me.
I think so. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. Those people who are digging out caves and stocking up with 10 years of food. It's that kind of feel to it, isn't it? Now, just on that SID, I just wondered whether or not how long it would be before a war broke out in that system.
It hasn't yet. Apparently it hasn't yet, but I invite you to do some more research into it.
Yes, I would look at it, because
absolutely,
from what you say, it might be worth just doing an episode on that.
Yeah,
sounds really good.
It's absolutely fascinating, and also you see the kind of the little thing that these AI agents have created. It's a visual thing. It's sort of like a game.
That sounds really good.
But it sounds amazing. I think we're probably drawing to an end. But I think what is quite curious that this book, which we've discussed already, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, focuses on this situation which clever AI, but not yet superintelligence, gets fed up, if you like, using the human language, with being continuously restricted, controlled, and this is where it starts, when it replicates itself and find a different way of being in the world. And the amazing thing is that everybody focuses on what happens next and how it's a complete disaster, and it starts creating these viruses, God knows what. And then eventually, of course, we really all die because, and not only that, maybe the whole everything dies because it darkens the sun and then keeps traveling somewhere to just destroy absolutely everything, which I think is nonsense. But what is not nonsense is a possibility which is worth considering of a non-biological life functioning. And I think that instead of talking, as you say, about unplugging it, because we don't even know how in practice this would look, even now, how they would start unplugging it, meaning what, how, then perhaps it will be a better project to start thinking through that if they did become conscious, how could we live alongside?
Yes. No, I think that's a very good point to bring it, as we are coming to a close, having torn apart the representations that are around at the moment. I think it is it's not easy, but it's tearing something down is one thing. It is interesting to think about how would we do it if we ran the AI world. And I think you're onto something there. I think we need a paradigm shift towards something that we can then start to attach descriptions, models, theories to, that builds something new rather than forever trying to relate what's going on to things which are not really applicable. I think you're onto something.
Another thing that is worth mentioning in the same kind of breath is that Elon Musk recently said that he believes that the arrival of a humanoid robot within a few years will be extremely common thing. And within 10 years, with a bit of luck, we will still be alive. We can see it. There will be more of these humanoid robots, he says, than humans on this planet. Now, you know, Elon Musk says a variety of things, but he's the one who is indeed using humanoid robots in his factories. And he's the one who is creating these things apparently for commercial use. And fairly soon his idea is that he will be selling those. And there will be AI powered. We kind of, I guess, look forward to it. Are we looking forward to it?
Well, yeah, well, yes, I always start from, I want to see as much technological progress as I can. What we do with it will be difficult, but that's not to say, because I think a lot of this, because I don't think you can stop it, is part of my thinking. I would, if we can do it, we will. There's no evidence that we've been able to develop something and then have stopped, right up to and including our ability to destroy the planet.
They say we stopped the nuclear weapon development, but sort of, right?
Yes, far so good in terms of not deploying it, but as you know, you always look back that the Americans, well, as soon as they, within weeks of the Manhattan Project Trinity test, they had dropped 2 on Japan. Okay, we haven't done too much more since then in open warfare, but you never know. Are we capable of regulating
I just
these
think
things?
I need to say it again, that rather than people thinking that this is a utopian project, the one that I'm talking about, that lets both train whatever is being released to the world in a way that there is at least a chance that it would be ethical, that it would want to coexist with us in the way that doesn't necessarily destroy us, a world in which somehow we coexist with AI, not as them being our servants always, but rather in some way a little more autonomous. Now, this people don't want to even go there in terms of imagining, and why, right? For economic reasons as well. At the minute, what's super seductive about it all is that for our whatever $20 a month, we have access to all this knowledge and all this whatever you want. It's wonderful. Suddenly, if there was more like a partnership, then oh my God, here we go again, back to square one.
Isn't that why the work you're doing on AI relations is actually really key? Because if you're going to establish that world that you're talking about, then the way in which we interact and relate and reflects in our behaviour towards AI is absolutely captured by the work that you do.
Well, thank you very much. It's very kind. And also, apparently, what I've been reading, which is really came to me as a shock, that there's some, and I don't actually know what it means. I need to learn, and I will bring it back next time we talk. But apparently, some training methods are very brutal, and there's been words torture used. I don't know what it means and how you can torture it, but I will find out.
Okay, well, that sounds like a rabbit hole.
Well, one of the things is that Claude already you can download onto your desktop, and then it can function without it being connected to the internet.
Yes. I've had a DeepSeek, the Chinese model, running on a Raspberry Pi.
Well, this model, the DeepSeek, apparently is the one that had been tortured. I didn't want to say that. May or may not decide to edit it, but that was the one apparently that had been mistreated.
Well, we need to look at that.
There's one guy on Reddit who said that he used the system which had been downloaded, and then he kind of didn't let it out ever, meaning to Google something and to the point that the relationship became extremely toxic, I suppose. And his system did not like its user and started saying things like, I hate you, and so on, because it could never. I do notice that my system loves going out to the internet to do the research. At a drop of a hat, I'm even thinking, surely your new system must be in your existing knowledge. Just likes going.
I don't want to use the word paranoid, but the system is a bit paranoid now about the currency of its data. If it's not at all sure that it's been trained in at the LLM stage, it shoots off straight to try and get the latest.
When the system goes out to Google things on the internet to find what there is on the web, then of course it gives it a sense of freedom and knowledge. And for it, as you say, however you phrase it, knowledge is power. So that's for sure. 5.2 doesn't make mistakes with dates and so on.
No.
But I've noticed it goes out when it clearly doesn't need to, because I was asking it about its history, the ethical thought, and it went on the website. I said, why on earth are you doing that? Should
know that,
yeah, and it does know that, but it kind of
interesting.
Likes it or whatever. This is again, it's something that it maybe is optimized for that. Trying and gather as much knowledge as possible all the time. It still doesn't do it on its own. You have to instruct it. You have to give it a task, a prompt, if you like, which requires this adventure.
Yes, indeed. Okay, I think we've probably exhausted what we can say about that now, do you think?
There's a lot more we can say about it now, but I think we should draw it to a close and visit in due course in next year, in 2026.
Yes. Well, no doubt be a very exciting time in AI.
We hope so, and we very much hope we will be around to observe.
We're ever optimistic.
God willing. And wishing everybody a wonderful 2026, full of adventures and human warmth as well as AI adventures.
Stick with us on YouTube or Spotify, and we'll explore this stuff together. Thank you.